Here are some reminders to help you get the most out of your DIVES CD lessons. First, work the problems with me. Work every single problem that I work and take notes on everything that I write on the board. One thing I encourage you to do is on the first practice problem, work that one with me, but then for the second and subsequent ones, pause the CD, try to work the problem on your own, then fast forward to the answer. If you got it right, great, you can move on to the next one. If you got it wrong, rewind the CD, look at how to solve the problem, and figure out how to do it correctly. Next, anytime you need to, pause and rewind the CD until you understand that particular concept. The ability to pause and rewind so easily is what makes DIVES CD lessons so much better than a live classroom lecture, so make sure and take advantage of that technology. Next, remember the purpose of math is to teach you to think and to solve problems, to effectively and efficiently think and solve problems. In the lower math levels, there's lots of mental math. In the upper levels especially, this is the most important purpose of math, is to teach you to think and to solve problems. Next, do all of the problems in the problem sets. It depends on the course that you're doing, but typically you'll do 3 to 5 problem sets a week, so that means 3 to 5 CD lessons plus a test. Next, work the homework problems and your test problems too. Work those vertically. Split your paper in two and work them vertically. And of course, make sure you show your work on your problems too. As you work them vertically, write each step down and write each subsequent step underneath the previous one. And this will help you sometimes to recognize patterns a little bit easier and help you solve the problem better. Also, use a calculator sparingly, only for geometry problems and some word problems. Don't use it for Math 7-6 or below that for any of that. Algebra half and up, use it sparingly. And lastly, have a good attitude. Every day you do school, you have a choice to make. It is your personal choice to have a good attitude, work hard, do your best, or to be lazy, complain, whine, and have a bad attitude. So choose right now to have a good attitude. Dive in, take advantage of this CD lesson, and do your best to learn the math that you're going to learn today. Lesson 20 is about volume. Now we've learned about perimeter, we've learned about area, we've learned about surface area of geometric solids. So we've studied geometric solids a little bit, and that's what we deal with in algebra when we're talking about volume. We'll be calculating the volume of right geometric solids. Just like in lesson 15, we were calculating surface area of right geometric solids, and if you remember, their height is perpendicular to their base. That's why they're called right solids, because there's a right angle between their height and their base. Now, before we get started with volume, let's just kind of review what we've learned about perimeter and area. Perimeter, when we're calculating perimeter, remember the units are just as important as the numerical part, and we're always calculating units of length with perimeter. When we figure out area of a shape, whether it's surface area or just area of a flat shape, we're calculating two lengths, or multiplying two lengths together always, whether it's the area of a circle where we multiply the radius times the radius, or a rectangle where we multiply length times width. We always have two lengths that we multiply together, and our units for area are always in length squared. Volume, you can probably recognize the pattern here. When we do volume calculations, we have to have three different lengths that we multiply together. So we're doing a length times a length times a length. So our units are always going to be length cubed when we're calculating volumes. So volume, for all volumes of a right solid, it's a fairly simple thing to remember. You just have to calculate the area of the base, and then you multiply that times the height, and that's the perpendicular height to the base. So you might want to remember that, write that down somewhere to remember how to figure out the volume of a right solid. You just figure out the area of its base, then multiply by the height to figure out volume. Look at practice problem A. Let's try to figure out the volume of that right geometric solid. And I have the solid on the left, and then over to the right I have the dimensions of just the base, because we always have to figure out the area of the base, and we multiply that by the height perpendicular to the base to calculate the volume. So let's go ahead and figure out the area of the base first, and we see that we have a rectangle and a triangle that make up the base. And so let's calculate the area of each of those. So the rectangle is 6 times 7, which would be 42. And then we can add to that the area of the triangle. And so that bottom side is 20 long. And let's use meters for our units of length. So it's 20 meters long. And then that top piece is 7. So that means the base of the triangle is 13. And then its height would be 6, just like the height of the rectangle. And so we'll have 13 times 6 divided by 2. And we can simplify that to a 3 there. And so now we have 42 plus 13 times 3, or 42 plus 39. And if we add those two together, we'll get 81 meters squared. That's our area. And let's just, to be more clear, we'll say AB for area of base. We'll call that AB there. Now we need to multiply 81 times 4. And that will give us our volume, because the height is 4 meters. If we look over on our solid, we see that dimension of 4 meters on it. And if we do that multiplication, that gives us 324 cubic meters. Got to remember those units. It's cubic meters now, because we did meters squared times meters, and that gives us cubic meters. So we calculated the area of the base, then we multiply it by the height perpendicular to the base, and that gave us a volume of 324 cubic meters for that right solid. Look at practice problem B. We have a right cylinder here, and I want you to figure out the volume of that right cylinder. So again, it's just the area of the base times the height perpendicular to the base. Now, I know height, you usually think of straight up and down, but you just need to do the side that's perpendicular to the base, and that would be that 13-inch length. That's what you'll multiply the area of the base by in this problem. So figure out the area of the base first. You have a radius of 4 inches on that circle, so you'd say pi times 4 squared, and then we can multiply that by 13, or the height, and so then we'll get pi times 16 times 13. And so you can just go ahead and get your calculator out and do that multiplication. 3.14 times 16 times 13, and that'll give you 653.12 inches cubed. Remember, it's inches cubed, inches to the 3rd power, because we did inches times inches times inches. Now look at practice problem C. I want you to figure out the volume of that shape there, and over to the right, I've given you the area of the base, because it's not an area that you can calculate using just basic geometric shapes like circles, triangles, and squares and rectangles. So that area is 23 centimeters squared, and the height is 10 centimeters. So all you have to do is just do 23 times 10 is equal to 230 centimeters cubed. So you'll have some problems like that in the lessons where they give you the area of the base. All you have to do is multiply that value by the height perpendicular to the base and just keep up with your units, and those problems are really simple to do. Remember, your units are just as important as getting the numerical part of your answer correct on these problems. Volume has units of length cubed, area has units of length squared, and then perimeter or circumference, either one, just have units of length. Okay, well that's all for lesson 20.